Way back in February and March this year, we reported on 24-year-old Fraser McDowall, a then probationary Lincolnshire police constable who was accused and charged with rape. Absolutely no point in asking me about that photo. I have no idea why somebody would take a photo of the back of his head, but it is, at the moment, the only photo that I can find, so I used it. It appears that McDowall appeared for a 4-day trial at Nottingham Crown Court this week, where he was ultimately acquitted of the offence by a jury. He had been accused of the offence against a woman he met on a night out in Lincoln whilst off duty on the 16th of October last year. He did admit having sex with the woman, who the prosecution claimed to have been too drunk to have consented, but the jury found him unanimously not guilty. It would seem that whilst he was still employed by the force and going through the system, Lincolnshire Police Force uncovered a WhatsApp chat on his phone that contained inappropriate messages about the complainant, about the public, and about other colleagues. The WhatsApp group was accessible, it seems, by just a small number of police colleagues, whereby 5 male plod shared what the force calls wholly inappropriate and grossly discourteous messages, adding that the tone of the chat was generally disrespectful, unkind and indecent. Disrespectful and unkind, not such a big problem, really, is it? Let's face it, because that's subjective. Indecent, on the other hand, okay, depending on what was said and published in the group. Again, that's a kind of touch and go one, isn't it? Now, due to the fact that McDowall was going through criminal proceedings, the details of those who were in the group were not published when they all attended a misconduct hearing in July this year, and we have had to wait all of this time to find out the names so not to interfere with the trial. Now, it turns out that all 5 of those involved in the group were found to have committed gross misconduct for their part in sharing the messages, although I have yet to find information as to what the message content was. Police constables 40-year-old Craig Barratt, 39-year-old Richard Hughes, were both dismissed without notice, whilst the other 3, 29-year-old PC John Feeney, probationary officer 28-year-old Joshua Porter and 24-year-old Fraser McDowall, would have been dismissed had they not already resigned. Chief Constable Chris Howard said the behaviour of this group of individuals was abhorrent and completely unacceptable. We are all here to serve with respect and impartiality and to treat colleagues in the way they have. Not to mention the language they use about members of the public is something that will not be tolerated at Lincolnshire Police. It simply does not belong here. Now, of course, this police behaviour, slagging people off and the public off in private, is getting out of hand. And as I've said before, which some of you do disagree with, although freedom of speech is a right, it is a qualified right, which can be taken away and revoked from people in certain circumstances. Now, whether I agree or disagree with that is irrelevant. It's a fact, and so, therefore, we have to live with it. I do think that in some positions, such as being made to sign the Official Secrets Act, for example, which restricts your ability to freedom of speech on certain topics, the police should also be held accountable and restricted from certain forms of speech, whether in private or in public. In my own opinion, I certainly wouldn't want a copper who openly talks about and laughs about rape to deal with a family member if they were involved in such a situation, or laughing and sharing photos of dead people's family members. Yes, they're entitled to have a joke and a laugh, but not at the expense of the people they are supposed to serve and the people who put their trust and faith in the police. I've been called all sorts for my opinion on this matter, with people indicating they see me as wanting a totalitarian state where everyone's thoughts are monitored. I can assure you, I do not want that. But just like pedos and pervs can have their access to the internet and chat groups monitored to make sure they are not committing further offences, I don't see why the people with the most power over us shouldn't be subject to the same rules to ensure they are acting accordingly and professionally. Yes, it's a tough job discerning what's to be taken as a joke and what's not, but it's something that I think needs to be done. It's obvious that these groups are a breeding ground within police forces for criminal activity by police, whether it's discussing confidential information, whether it's affirming other people's sick and twisted beliefs. There's a pattern of police being involved in these groups and then going on to commit offences, and I personally think that needs dealing with. Calling somebody a twant and having an opinion about somebody is fine in general terms. But if you have a copper dealing with a case you're involved in, but them talking about how they would like to fuck you or how they don't believe you while discussing the case with others, is highly likely to prejudice or produce, at the very least, a conflict and affect their ability to deal with you with impartiality and integrity. Repeating a joke that they heard from Jimmy Carr, not such an issue if it's clear that that's what it is, but saying things like we've had reported before, such as Metplod discussing a struggle cuddle with a teenager that you've arrested or grappled with, is completely inappropriate, and that's the kind of thing that needs stopping. I'm sure some of you will want to share your opinions with me, whether you agree with me or not, so please do so in the comments. But remember, I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't be allowed to have a joke and have a laugh in private or in public. But when you join the police, you do give up certain rights for other rights, and this is one of the rights I think that they should have to give up for the benefit and the safety of the public. Let me know what you think down below.